These girls was up there working. True story. And they weren't in a union at the time, and they were treating them terrible. You know, I mean, they wouldn't give them time off. They weren't making good money. They wanted time off. They had to work the weekends. They had to be there 24 hours a day. You know, and there was only 7 of them. And there was a lot of people in town, but not everybody had telephones. But still, it was a busy job, and you know, hard to take breaks. And their owners of the company were not very, you know, they were not really cared real bad. They were more worried about getting the money for the phones. Okay, well, they decided to form their own union. So they did. They formed their own little union. And they decided they would meet with the owners and say, hey, you know what? We want better wages. We want some time off. You know, we want a little bit more dignity here. Says, no, just go back to work. Just ignored them. So you know what they said? We'll strike. We'll strike, and we'll make sure this strike will last. They went out and they formed a general strike. This was the only general strike that was ever reported in the United States, was right here. And so what happened was, there they were striking, and it got reported to Indianapolis, and the governor at the time said, Lieutenant Governor, get on the train, get down there, take some girls down there, and start that telephone company back up. So they come down here, scabbed on the rest of them, went up there and started manning the telephone lines. They were up there 4 or 5 days. Now I told you about the telephone, or the flagpole down there. It was standing at the time. Well, all of a sudden the city of Linton went on general strike. And general strike means everybody's not working. Nobody. That means all the mines shut down, and the mines are a big thing here. All the food places, everything. It's just like it was dead. And they were at that point, they were getting pretty nasty, these kids. And they were out here in the front. They were throwing things up there, busting the windows out, calling them, you know, I mean, hey, you know what? You got all these guys that work really hard. Now all of a sudden they're out of work because they're not treating those girls right. And another thing too, a little tidbit to that. According to Agnes Shepard, her dad and a couple other guys actually started the UMWA up here on Main Street. So actually the beginning of the United Mine Workers, actually in one form, started right up here on Main Street. So these guys were all involved in this stuff, and they took this to heart. This was really a union town at that time. So we kept getting a little bit stronger and stronger and worse, and so the lieutenant governor's here with these girls. He makes a phone call to Indianapolis, says, hey Gov, we got problems. Says, they're getting really, it's scary, and says, we're kind of fearing for our life. He says, well, I'll tell you what, says, we'll send the militia. Militia's National Guard. Send the militia down here. So, okay, they do. They send the militia. So the militia's here, and here they are. They're all out here guarding. And they're in the back. They're guarding the back. All these people are throwing stuff and yelling and screaming, and constantly a little bunch of people here. So one morning, they all got together. It says, meet down at the flagpole. So they all met down at the flagpole, and probably stopped at some of the little happy places over here, and got them a little brew. And anyhow, they were cranked up. They were ready to prepare battle. Well, they come down here, and when they did, the lieutenant governor calls back to the governor and says, we got big problems. He says, we got 200 or 300 people out here in the front. They're clear all the way over to the other buildings. This whole area out here is totally full of people, and it's getting intense. And he says, we're afraid they're going to ram the front door and come in. The governor says, shoot to kill. I said, what? Shoot to kill. Are you sure that's what you want? Tell the militia to shoot to kill. So he sends a message down through. They come out here. Okay. So they're standing here, and they're getting ready. And there was 3 women that grabbed up their little kids, and they went to the front of the pack. And they stood up in front, of these guys with these guns that are all standing right here. All this is full of guys. And they said, you take our kid. And then when you kill it, and you kill me, then you kill the guys here behind you. If this is what you want to do, if this is what it comes to, we'll put our life up. Well, Alicia goes, I don't think I want to play this anymore. They scatter. They absolutely scatter, because the guys, now that really, then it really gets tense, you know. They've won a battle here. They kept them for 4 days and 4 nights upstairs. They had this thing barricaded off good enough that they couldn't get to them. You probably don't know, but these 3 buildings that's here, that looks like one now, Cheap John's was next door, by the way, at one time. Boston store and a Y store. Now see, you grinned about Cheap John's because you know what Cheap John's was. That was our beginning discount house. Walked in there and he'd have boxes this big full of shoes. Yeah. It didn't make any difference what it was.
That's right.
You never knew what you was going to get at Cheap John's.
Nope.
But anyhow, off the story. Anyhow, there's believe it or not, under these buildings, there are these little causeways, walkthroughs. You can go from one building to the next underneath. I went through them once, and it's kind of eerie, because don't understand why they're there. We don't know if it had to do with slave traffic at one time. I don't know what it was. But anyhow, there's little causeways through these buildings. Took them girls down, got them on the causeway after the 4th day, took them to the back of the alley, caught the right time when not anybody was around. They went 2 days over at the hotel. And then the next day they were on the train getting back to Indianapolis. Now, the reason I know this big story, I had this documented, there's a gentleman that come to the store a few years ago, and he says, I'm doing my doctorate on, it has to do my paper. He says, this is the only general strike in the United States that was ever recorded. And it's in the Indianapolis paper, and it's in the Chicago, New York paper, and it was the only one that was ever recorded. And it was right here. We're right here.
Would be something.
Isn't it cool? So now, one quickie on the other side. Again, I told you Welch worked for the hardware the furniture store over here, and worked in the funeral direction. The Welch funeral home started right here at the end. Talked to a gentleman one time. Well, I didn't talk to him. Actually, I've got the paperwork on him, and also a recording of him that actually worked with Welch, and then went to work for Welch over here. And I said, do you ever remember the mine accident? The Little Betty mine explosion. Oh, this guy was really boring. This thing, you almost went to sleep for an hour. Oh, I don't know much about that. I don't know. And says, yeah, he says, I do. He says, I carried bodies out all night long. He said, I had a horse and a wagon. He says, and we just had them laying in rows in that building, so we could get them all fixed up. And he says, during this thing though, he says there was 2 guys, says nobody claimed, and he said we didn't know what to do with them, and he said so we fixed them all up and we put them in a box, and he said next day when the sun went past the thing here, said we took them out in front, said we put them standing up, kind of leaning back in their caskets, said thought maybe somebody might pay respects or something. He said during this thing, says you looked out there on Main Street and there's them 2 old dead guys out there. Well, he made the whole hour talking to him about that, So stories are the fun parts, That's where you remember stuff.
Yeah.
Go over here at where the Moose is at right now. There was like 25 different taverns down here. Now, I've got some people that will be Mrs. Beasley.
Marie?
No, B. Haseman. B. Haseman said her mama told her, says good girls don't go on the west side of Main Street. They stay on the east side. You don't go over on the west side of Main Street. Says that's not a good part because of all the railroads down here and the guys going to work and stuff and getting off in the evenings. And a lot of them wanted to get a beer, so there's a lot of beer joints down there. If you wanted a massage, you know, there was places down there that could give you a massage if you was tired or whatever, you know. I can't really go into that, but anyhow, that's what is. So anyhow, this whole area down here, that between here and Bonton, that's what that area was all about. And there was, so also a kid could go in, you could be 6 years old and you could go in a tavern. There was no problem to go in a tavern. My dad told me when he was a kid, his dad took him to Jasonville and set him right up beside on the stool, and Dad drank he said a soda type thing that they made. That he says, you know, Dad drank a beer and said, I sit right at the bar with him. I said, well, you know, you couldn't do that now. But anyhow, there was a little tavern over there on the corner, and their advertisement was come see drink or come and get your beer and come and see the bear and feed the bear. Well, if you was a kid and Dad come home and he says, go get me a pitcher of beer, and you got 20 places to go get beer, where are you going to go? Yeah, I'm going to go feed the bear and I'll get Dad's beer there. It doesn't make any difference what it tastes like, but that's what we're going to do. So, sure enough, go down there and so the little story was that went on all summer long really good. But in the fall, the sign changed. Sign says, come and get your beer and all the free bear meat you want. So at the end of the year, rather than keeping the bear through the winter, they butchered the bear. So that was the little story. So things were kind of tough, you know. It wasn't an easy life, but you know, that's just the way things were. So anyhow, all right, take you a little bit more. See, this could go on for hours.
Yeah.
And if anybody gets tired or they say, oh, I've had enough of this, let me know. I'll shut up. We can do this again sometime, you know. Also, we are going to start doing across the street the history talks on the Sunday afternoon things.
Oh.
We've got a better screen. We've got more room.
Good.
And it's also handicap accessible. We've got a nice new restroom in there, facility. It's set up, and we're going to have popcorn and drink sodas and talk about history.
Be in the paper?
Yeah, I'll start putting it in the paper. I told everybody that we take the summer off.
Bring pictures?
Oh, gosh, yeah. And stories, you know, because it's fun. We're also going to do a cooking thing this winter.
Here are arms. Get in here.
He's coming over here.
All right, one quick one here, then we're going to go around the other side. Okay, now you want to stump everybody. Where was the first gas station in Linton?
Up on North Main. My daddy had a filling station where the Martin has got, that was Daddy's first Standard Oil station. Then they moved him from there, they built this building, and then they moved him down here.
Okay.
But he was up on North Main originally, I got a picture of it.
Good. I know about where that's at.
Martin, the drive-thru's still
when
there.
the horse and buggy things were gone, and Eckert's was here, remember? Eckert's had a pump right here. Actually, the pump was right there, over there. And it was, they told me this is one of the first.
Okay. Yeah, but like I
said, it
said,
really wasn't a service station. It was a place to get fuel.
Yeah.
And Eckert's had it here.
Yeah, Daddy had the drive-through. Where that drive-through's at Martin's.
Yep, that's right. I know where that's at.
Okay,
Sure
I got a picture of it.
Yeah.
Got a picture of this one.
You need to bring those down, and I need to get you in history.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing too. It's up to all of us to do this. We need to compile this history. So, okay.